Hi guys, just wanted to give you a quick update on some of the structure and major assignments and policies of the class here. Um, here I have the paper assignment that I'm going to talk about probably in class on Wednesday and Friday, but I thought it would be helpful to give you a heads up here. Our paper for this class everyone will write on Giovanni and Lusana. It's the one long text that we're reading. If you haven't started reading it, you should definitely start now. Take advantage of this free day because we will be having a seminar on this source in about 2 weeks, and then the paper will be due about a week after that. So you definitely want to get started reading the book. So you're going to read the book, we're going to have a seminar on the book, and then you're going to write a paper about the book. So hopefully it's pretty straightforward, and hopefully you understand the text pretty well by the time you come to write your paper on it. The paper will be about 5 to 7 pages long. You're going to provide basically a review, a critical review. So it can't just be a comprehension exercise. You can't just regurgitate the book back to me. You're going to have to think critically about the book, but the assignment is basically a review of about 5 to 7 pages using the structure that I provided here. In your introduction, you should explain the story and give an outline of the story, and then you should provide a powerful thesis that shows or explains or argues what this story teaches us about Renaissance society. And then I want you to tie your reading of the book into the context of Renaissance society. That's something we've been studying a lot in the first half of this class, or first part of this class, so it's something that I want you to bring into the paper. What else is going on more broadly in Florence alongside this marriage drama? So you have this marriage drama with Giovanni and Lusana. How do the issues raised in this text reflect the issues that Florence as a city, or even Renaissance Italy as a whole, is wrestling with at this time? So I want you to set it in context, the political and social context of the Renaissance in 1455, and then I want you to talk about the sources used by the author here, Bracca. Bracca is a historian. He's constructing the story after the fact, but it's a story heavily based on primary sources. I want you to talk about the sources that are being used by Bracca to construct this story. So this should be the second paragraph. Each of these letters here should be a paragraph. One paragraph on the way the story fits into the context of Renaissance Florence, the other on the sources that Bracca's using to construct this story. What kind of sources are they? What are their strengths? What are they helpful for us to get to know? What are their weaknesses? Then you move on, and I want to see an extended section about the themes of this society. The themes that are reflected in this story that this story teaches us about. And I want you to use extended quotes, summarizing, footnoting in the text to support your positions. Then I want you to talk a little bit more about the historiographical aspect of this story. I want you to talk about the weaknesses of this book. And so this is a very complicated text. It's very important that you keep in mind when writing your paper, and reading this text, that this is a primary account of a marriage drama, a marriage debate, a marriage legal case in Renaissance Florence, but it's been reconstructed and interpreted by a historian later in the fact. So you have to be able to distinguish those two components. What is coming directly from the primary sources, and what aspects is Bruckner interpreting? And what are the weaknesses of his interpretation? Then in the last part of the paper, I want you to tie together the themes that you've identified, the context that you find in the source, the way you've set this source in the context of the time, and make an argument about what you've learned about Renaissance society. So given that we know, I want a paragraph, a page, so probably 2 paragraphs, that sets out, here's what we know about Renaissance society, based on this source. This is what's being emphasized. We know that these themes are being emphasized. We know that these political events are taking place at the same time. How do the two combine together to give us a picture of what this society was like? And that should be the driving argument of your paper. Okay, that's the outline of the paper. I'm just going to keep moving down this assignment here, which again, I hope to hand out in class. September 23rd is when we're discussing this source in class, so it's when you should all have read this source by. And in order to help you prepare for the paper, I want you, when you come to class on September the 23rd, to provide an outline of the paper that you're going to write, and that is worth 10% of your final grade. So it's a significant part of your final grade. It doesn't have to be a detailed outline, but it has to show me that you have read the text and that you could sit down and start writing this paper right now if you had, if you were asked to, if you needed to. So that's what I need to be able to see. It doesn't have to be detailed, but it does have to show that you're ready to write the paper, because then you can spend the week after our seminar putting your outline into a paper format. Lastly, I've provided the rubric for the paper. It's going to grade you on effort. Most people should get 9s or 10s for this. Basically, it means turn in professional level work on time. Language should be clear and vivid and concise. Again, most people should be aiming for 9s, 10s, maybe 8s here. This accuracy component basically should go without saying. What you talk about should reflect accurately what's in the source, what's true about the history of the period. The paper needs to have a clear overarching thesis that makes an argument that drives the rest of the paper. Your thesis needs to make an argument very specifically about what this source teaches us about Renaissance society. And then the rest of this rubric kind of follows the outline of the paper. So just make sure you don't miss any of the components of the outline. What is the context of the paper? What are the sources being used? What are the themes that are emphasized in the source? What are the weaknesses of Brucker's interpretation? Analyze how these components fit together. And then the originality, I'm not going to grade that one incredibly harshly. It's going to be hard to get 9s and 10s, but it's not going to be particularly hard to get 7s and 8s. Just make sure you're not boilerplating something that's just kind of boring. Make sure you think in depth and come up with an original interpretation of the source in as much as you can. Okay, I hope this is helpful. I hope to go over this in more detail in class, but I wanted to give you a heads up. I wanted to give you a framework so you could begin working on your papers as much as you can and as early as you can. Thanks again, and I'll see you on Wednesday.